and welcome to another Coffee with Kilroy, or what I like to call beverage in a book. My beverage, well, coffee. Who would have thunk that? My book today is A History of Warfare from John Keegan, as I said, author of The Face of Battle, which is a good book as well. And the reason I wanted to do this book is I highly recommend this book. If you're interested in history in general, but especially military history, this is a very good read. I generally like Keegan's approach and narrative. Read several of his books, and he is quite prolific in military history and warfare subject matter. But this is my favorite of his, primarily because of its approach to the history of warfare. A lot of people, take a chronological approach to it, or they take just a topic-specific approach, doing different periods. This is a full survey of the history of warfare. And is not, although it might not be exhaustive, it covers the gambit. I mean, it covers all the high points of it, from the beginning of time to modern day times. I guess modern day meaning when this was written. Let's see. This is what's the copyright on this? 1993. So not always the. We're now 30 years after this, but I think, it's history, right? So it still holds true up until 1993. Let's look at the back before I get to the, my kind of take on this book. You have the perfunctory, regular, this is the greatest ever, but let's read the back here a little bit. In this encyclopedically learned and immensely gripping book, one of our foremost military historians demolishes the famous dictum that war is the continuation of policy by other means. On Easter Island, for example, rival factions exterminated one another in a ceaseless competition for the egg of a sooty tern. The Aztecs seem to have fought for nothing more than the captives that they slaughtered by the thousands, and what policy could possibly have informed the Gulf War in which the United States and its allies destroyed the army of Saddam Hussein, only to leave Saddam himself securely in power. Again, this is 1993, folks. Analyzing centuries of conflict in societies from the Amazon to the Balkans, waged by nomadic horsemen, peasant guerrillas, and suburbly disciplined regiments, John Keegan unveils the deepest motives behind humanity's penchant for mass bloodshed. A History of Warfare is a masterpiece of military scholarship, irresistible in its style and terrifying in its implications. So there's really two main reasons why I like this book. Three main reasons. I feel like the Spanish Inquisition now. Among our chief, 3 is the number. Do not go to 4 and do not stop at 2. My 3 primary reasons why I like this book and why I recommend it as a read even today. I would still recommend it. Is number 1 is what they kind of talk on the back here. He kind of goes after Clausewitz a little bit about, war is the continuation of policy by other means, and that he kind of does a survey of these different of warfare throughout history and how it was applied, how it was used, and what reasons it was used for, or at least trying to determine some of the motivations. So, that's one of the premise or theorems that he has in here. Now, you can go with that or not. He makes an argument for it, or there are arguments to be made for it, that Clausewitz was off, but I leave that to you. I found myself agreeing with lots of it, and then some of it not as much, but then again, who am I? The second reason for this is kind of talks about this, this encyclopedically learned and immensely gripping book. This covers the watershed. This goes from the beginning of time all the way up to present being 1993, but for present-day purposes, when we're talking about advanced weapons and remote weapons, of course, this doesn't get into drones and all that stuff, but it does get into missiles and the atomic bomb and worse. It's a good survey of military history and warfare throughout time. So those are my, you got an argument in here dealing with Clausewitz. You've got kind of a good survey of warfare in a nice tight package. It's not that big. And then the third reason, and this is the main reason why I recommend this, is how this book is laid out. It kind of takes a different approach other than, as I said before, some people do it chronologically or they do it by period. But Keegan decided to take a little bit different take on it. And again, my channel is all about perspectives and different perspectives. If you look at my banner, and so this is a classic example of different perspectives and how he decided to kind of look at warfare throughout history. He starts off with an introduction, war in human history, and kind of a setting the stage for this whole book and the topic. But then he breaks it down into 4 areas: stone, flesh, iron, and fire. And so each one of those sections is going to be talking about warfare during that time period, but in the time period of stone. So we're looking at ancient, and we're looking at the manner of weapons that were used during like the Stone Age and the like. So this is really ancients and stone implements of weapons, and there's an interlude on fortifications in here, but the like, talking about stone and that period. So a different kind of perspective on how you break these periods down. It's not your typical, from the beginning of time to 500 BC or something like that. He's got stone. Next is flesh, and the flesh there is primarily horses, right? It is primarily, chariots, horses, mounted combat, and the introduction of that into the fray, and so that and there's a little interlude on armies here. So that's kind of one of the big elements of flesh, but also getting into the human conflict and the fact that we're now starting to get from the stone and the flesh section. You're getting into battles as a result, kind of not just skirmishes, but actually troops that are lined up or organized or brought together for an actual battle, which is starting to come in this area here. Iron, now you're getting into again, implements of war. You're getting into iron. So you've got swords, you've got armor, you've got, and the like, and how that affected warfare during that period. And then finally you get to fire. And what we're talking about fire here is we're talking about, arms, the gunpowder and more advanced weaponry, and the amount of, and the increasing number of metal that is in the battlefield, right? I mean, you start off with, muskets, which is just a few balls transversing an area of not very far to the opponent, to a larger area, and then with the weapons that we have nowadays, the automatic weaponry, a lot of lead, a lot of metal, a lot of fire in the middle of a battlefield, and that's an interesting analysis in there too. One of the things I take away from this. So I like how he broke this down. It's a different way of looking at this. I'm not saying this is the only way or the best way. I'm just saying I like different perspectives and looking at things from a different angle, and this provided that different angle to it. So those are the 3 main reasons why I recommend this book. Get through it. I mean, I don't know if there's a lot. I think there's been some criticism of the book, primarily on the Clausewitz theorem and going after Clausewitz. But the other 2, I'll stand by the other 2 aspects of this book of how it gives a pretty good broad survey, and also the way it looks at it in a different light. What is war? Got a whole section on that. Good to start off with that. Kind of sets the stage for what we're going to be getting into. And war is culture. Then talks that Easter Island element there as well. the Zulus. I mean, he covers a lot. I mean, it's not necessarily chronologically. It is, but it isn't. It's mainly looking at war in the light of the context of what he provided. So, I mean, like when you're talking about culture, he jumps around to the different aspects of different stories that support his positions on that. Here's the samurai. Let's get ahead here a little bit. I should have earmarked this. So then you're going to get, so that's a relatively long section talking about, war, kind of giving you the basis of warfare through history, or the history of warfare right there. Then you got Stone is the first section. Why do men fight? And starts off with it. And I actually like his narrative. Some people find Keegan kind of dry. I think this one is actually, I think, a better narrative and more interesting and more compelling. I don't know about gripping, as he says on the back of the book, but then some of his other, he's done books on World War I, the whole war, World War II, the Face of Battle, the Mask of Command, several books that I find very interesting. This one is, I did not find dry because I like the perspective and the subject matter of kind of doing a whole survey of war. I was more interested in that, and so it in that case, in that instance, it delivered. War and Human Nature, again, makes some assumptions here and tries to back them up. War and the Anthropologists. Again, we're in Stone Age, so we're limited by what we, or the stone is this topic matter, so we're limited to what we have from that time period, and there's not a lot written in that time period, if anything, and so we're looking at what we can surmise from what was left behind in that period. That's Stone, and then he's got some plates and stuff to talk to, that are called out in those sections. There's that little subpart on fortifications. I found that somewhat interesting as well. Then we get into the flesh here section, and talking about the adoption of the war chariot, and then all this other, the charioteers, big technological advance in history, and that's one of the things I like about this. He's looking at warfare through the eyes of its weapons, not necessarily through the eyes of its combatants, and I found that, again, an interesting and different perspective on things. There's more flesh. Then you get to iron, stone, bronze, and the horse, the principal means through which war was waged in the era when states were being established and when they were being assaulted by warrior peoples living beyond the settled zone, were by nature limited resources, though in different ways. Stone is laborious to fashion. Bronze is a product of scarce metals. The horse can be kept in the numbers necessary to mount the fighting on grazing land and are found only in restricted areas of the world. Had stone, bronze, and horse remained the means by which war was fought, its scope and intensity might never have exceeded the levels experienced during the first millennium BC, and human society, except in the confines of the benevolent conditions that prevailed in the great river valleys, may never have evolved beyond pastoralism and primitive husbandry. Man needed some other resource with which to attack the face of the earth in temperate forest zones, but also to contest possession of lands already settled with rich and strong minorities which had monopolized the expensive technology of war making in the Bronze Age. Iron supplied the need. So anyway, I've got just a little bit of take there to give you kind of a setting of what iron is going to be about and how that changed warfare in a substantial and pronounced way. Greeks and amphibious strategy, Macedonian, and the culmination of phalanx warfare. Again, you're getting a survey of warfare throughout history, but through the eyes of the technological development of the weaponry. Rome. Okay, let's get some plates in here to talk about some of that stuff. Oh, we're going to get into fire here. Getting into gunpowder, so I think that's coming next. Let's get into fire here. Well, this is legit. Here's another little sub part here: logistics and supply. For all you OCS people, you know who I'm talking about there. Okay, fire. Here we go. Fire is the weapon fire is a weapon of great antiquity in the form of Greek fire. And so he starts talking about the history and then talks about gunpowder and how that has changed everything. So this is the final section. This is going to take us up to modern day with fire. So there you have it there. Europe in the First World War. Anyway, he's got a lot of little maps and insets and stuff to help back up his point here, or support his point of view. Here's ultimate weapons, and there you have it. So then he's got a conclusion that we can talk about there. Conclusion's not as long as the beginning there, but anyway. So there you have it. That is a history of warfare. Thought I would share that with you today. This is definitely, for me at least, an essential book on my bookshelf for military history or warfare or history in general. I think it goes beyond just military history, but does so in a very interesting way. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Hope you're enjoying your coffee or whatever you're drinking. I got it all centered up here. And let me know your thoughts on this one. Did you agree with him? Do you agree with me on my 3 reasons why I find this a very good and essential work for anybody who's interested in military history? But you know what? I have been known to be wrong. So tell me how I'm wrong. Or if you agree with me, tell me what you agree with. Or if you're in between, hey, you can talk about that too. Just be civil. Anyway, thanks all. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.